Thank you so much, Brianna, for joining me. I just want to start off with that. I really appreciate you for being here with me. Yeah, how's your week been so far?
It's been kind of long, but getting through it, trying to stay grounded and remember to kind of not get too stressed too quickly because college semester just started, so I have to relax a little bit.
Yeah, and just like balance, right? Like
Yeah.
working and knowing to stop working. Like during this time, we've been isolated for so long, like for months. So I wanted to ask you, like, how has being isolated helped with your art?
I think that it has completely like changed it for the better, honestly. I'm naturally like an introverted person, so I always want to be alone for the most part. So having to be alone and like isolated was like my dream come true, honestly. It was like perfect for me. But I keep on saying this all the time. I think that if we were never like quarantined, if we never had to stay inside, I probably never would have published my book. Like I would always be so busy like working or with school, and like I just would have never sat down and took the time to do it. And so I think that that was a really big push for me, the quarantine, like to push my writing and my work to be better and for me to do bigger things with it.
That's awesome. I agree. In terms of like being in quarantine and like being to myself, it was so easy for me to like just go into like this world of like Daryl's creativity and what he loves to do without worrying about anybody else's expectations of it. It was just like being a kid again. And it's such a great feeling because then it's like you feel you again and you're not worried about what everybody else feels or what they may think. And I find that like now creating it's a lot harder because we want to make these things feel so real to everyone else. But it's like when we were kids, we would just be like, "This is what it is, and that's it," you know. So it was easier for me to create, I think. But at first, I was nervous like going into quarantine because my inspiration comes from like getting out. But surprisingly, it was really, really inspiring for me being inside, and like I found ways to make my space more like me, so I feel good and it like inspired my work a lot. You know, you and I, we actually met through our writing pages on Instagram, and through social media, we were able to connect, which is one of my favorite things about being an artist and like having social media is that you can stumble upon anybody at any given moment, and if you enjoy their work, you guys can connect. With writing, what do you provide for yourself?
Um, like I said before, like I'm very much an introvert, so I do believe that like my writing is my way of getting my voice out somewhere, whether it's like on a piece of paper or like to all of the Instagram people that follow me. Like it's just a way of me putting my thoughts onto paper because honestly, I just think like some really weird things and some really cool things sometimes, and so I want to get them out some way, and I'm not one to just like try to like announce them in front of people or talk to people about them. I'd rather just kind of keep them to myself, but kind of like I feel like in a way I kind of do hide behind my words sometimes. Like through Instagram, it's really easy to post whatever because I don't have to say it. Like I don't have to go on my story and like read something. I can just put a little feed post up, people will read it, and I won't like feel so scared. You know what I mean? So it's easier for me to write things down and share it through that way than for me to actually say it and like wait for people to respond to me.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Being so introverted, like I'm learning how to speak to other people and like be less like to myself in terms of like being around a group of people or people that I'm like doing something with and I don't actually have anything to say because I don't want to come off like I'm afraid how I'm going to come off instead of just being myself. And writing helps a lot with that, like you said, but I've also been like trying to get in the habit of like talking and like sharing that because I do like want to, I don't know, I guess have people see my face and like hear my voice. But yeah, that's why I try to do like voiceovers on some of my projects and stuff like that. But I think for me, what I provide for myself with writing is a way to, like you said, express things that I wouldn't normally just say, or things that like I think as people we carry a lot of shame, and it's like internalized from other people, and like we feel so guilty for feeling certain things when we're just human and it's okay. Like if we feel something and it's like not a good feeling, we'll be like, what's wrong with you? But the truth is that it's normal. So I guess for me, it's a way for me to just like straight up just say how I feel without worrying about feeling like I'm wrong or like something's wrong with me. Like if I don't express these things, something bad could happen internally, you know? And I love that writing, it's an easier way to say things that you feel in the moment that may not be like your generalized idea of something. Like for example, say if you have a really close friend and like you feel, I guess for example, they're not supporting you the way you wish they would. You know, not necessarily how they're supposed to, but like the way you wish that they would, and you write about it. And it's like, you know, you can let that go, and it's not necessarily like a printed statement. We're shipping it off. You're accountable. This is how you feel. Period. It's like this is how I felt in the moment, and I expressed it. You know, so that's really what that is for me.
It's like an exact situation that happened to me. Like over the summer, I had an issue with one of my friends, and like I was so like I don't even know how to describe it, but I had so many emotions like bottled up, and like I just couldn't get the situation out of my head. Like I was obsessing over it, and it gave me so much anxiety. And then like I wrote a piece about it, and I was just like, wow, I feel like so much better. And like there'll be days now where I just don't think about it. Like I'm fine, and I have accepted the situation, and I move forward. So I definitely think it's like writing does have a healing power for me. It's like it helps me get through the situations that otherwise I would just like continue to like obsess over.
Like it helps us put things into perspective, and it helps us learn exactly what we're feeling, because sometimes we can't, like it's hard to put a name to your emotions, and especially if it's something that you probably never felt before or you don't feel often. And I find myself like when something that I feel in a negative way, it stems from like my relationship with a close friend of mine, or like a relationship, I obsess with it as well, because it's like that, those expectations of like this person is supposed to always be a positive figure in my life. You know, how dare they, or how dare this be happening right now? This is not how it's supposed to be. And it's very frustrating, and it also kind of makes you feel like something's wrong with you a little bit. And it's very like you just have to get it out. And I've been experiencing the same thing, and I've been writing about it. Um, and it's helped a lot. So for me, writing is really just a chance for me to like just go ahead and just be me, you know, without worrying about being judged. So I do want to share with you like some writers who inspire me, and I want you to do the same. A few writers who inspire me in the moment, and inspire like the way I express myself would be number one, Bell Hooks for sure. I love Bell Hooks, and like I love how she emphasizes love, and like um, also especially for me like love in the black within the black community, and just so many like healing things that are so important, because to me love is very important. And it's like a lifestyle rather than just like something to talk about like in terms of relationship wise, but love is really a lifestyle, especially when you're an artist. um but yes, Bell Hooks for sure, and like her just being so, she pays attention to things, and I love that. Right now as well, Jenny Slate, who's the author of Little Weirds, which I just reviewed on my Instagram. And she's very like straight to the point, and she just talks about, like in that book she talked a lot about things that she's experienced. So Julia Cameron is like a big inspiration of mine at the moment. I would say you as well, especially after reading your book. Also Jennifer, who is she, if you guys want to check out Jen writing on Instagram, she's a friend of mine, and she's a really great writer, and her work inspires me a lot. What about
Thank you for including me in that list, by the way. Um, and I like agree with you 100% on Jennifer. I think that she posts like some of the most like straightforward, like it's like stuff that like hurts to read because you're like, dang, like she just called me out, but like you have to hear it. Like it's something you really need to hear to get through everyday life. So like I really appreciate that about her. I will say I have it here. It's actually it's like not so much a person as it is a poem. It's Charles Bukowski's The Laughing Heart. I keep it in my journal for like a lot of years now, since like 2016 or something. And it's also like in the front cover of my book. Like it's one of the pages in there because it's like my all-time favorite poem. And I don't even honestly remember how I ever like came about it, but I just remember like it hit me so hard and always just reminded me like I have to stay grounded kind of thing. So like that's very important to me. And I guess another one would be Cleo Wade, who I like. I think at like the beginning of college, I watched a TED talk that she did of like a speech that she wrote that she spoke, and it was just like it was just so crazy good, honestly. Like, it was for a speech class that I watched it, and I had to basically like reenact her, which I obviously could never do. Like, she was great, and I was like mediocre at best. But like, she's just very inspiring, and like she speaks with such like power, and it's like inspires me to have that kind of power. So those are like some of them, yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And the first one you mentioned, you were talking about this. When I read this, Brianna, I was like, oh my God. Like that is so like it's so beautiful. And it just like this whole book really just goes with a lot of things that I've been through, but also like some things like pinpoint exactly what I've been going through now. So like it's just perfect. And like this was like something that I really needed to read at the time. So when I opened it and I like read this, I was like, okay, I know this is gonna be a journey. So let me just start reading because I'm excited. There's another writer that I wanted to mention that I almost forgot to mention. Vivek Shreya. Yeah, she's amazing, and she wrote a book called "I'm Afraid of Men." And she's transgender, and I actually got the book for a friend, and I thought it would be good for her to read. And it's very tiny, the version that I got. So I ended up just reading it one day. I went to the park and I had like a little picnic for myself. And I was like, you know what, let me just take this book and read it because it's so small before I give it to her. I just want to know what it's about. Um, so then I ended up reading it and I realized that the book was actually for me without me knowing it. So I read it and I was just like, wow. Next thing you know, I'm underlining everything. Now I can't give my friend the book. So I have to get her like her own version. But like I felt like it was meant for me to read that book and I thought I got it for a friend, but I actually really did get it for myself. And the book is really just about like how a lot of men in her life, especially when she was younger and when she was a boy, like how it played a part in her like having self-hatred. I really loved it. It was so amazing and a lot of it I could relate to. And I realized that I had that same issue and I really didn't pay attention to it up until then. And it was beautiful. It was just like her writing down things that I've like experienced that I didn't pay attention to and just like giving it to me like, here you go. Sit with yourself and understand yourself. I was thinking about your book and I was like, um, maybe there's some pieces that didn't make it in the book, and I'm kind of curious about that. So I want to share something with you, like something that I wrote that I've never really like posted or like read before to anybody. And if you want to do the same, that would be great.
Like, I
Yeah,
could definitely find something.
me too. It doesn't have to be anything like super personal, just something that you realize you never really shared before. I'm gonna share this with you. I wrote this like a few nights ago, and this is like my nighttime book that I write in. Um, Okay, this doesn't have a title, so I'm just gonna read it. I check for my appearance too much, even when I am in my bathrobe at home. I want to look great all of the time. I want my surroundings to look good all of the time. It is an obsession that grows when I am not properly caring for my brain. It is a message, a hint, and a clue. Hey, how do I look on the outside? That's more easy to control now that I've neglected my mental health.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, honestly. So snaps for that. Okay, here I go. When I used to dream, I saw us both on the beach in the middle of the night. It was pitch black and we couldn't really see anything. We looked into each other's eyes and it was deep and powerful because there were never any stars around us. So the only light we could find was in each other. He called me beautiful like it was my name, said I looked pretty in pink, played with my hair like it was a child's favorite toy, kissed my lips like he could taste the part of him I held deep in my heart. I never knew a better feeling. I did know a worse one, though. Part of me thought that the dreaming would last forever, but I had to wake up sometime, so when I did, I wasn't surprised to see that it was daytime and there was enough light in the sun so he didn't need me anymore. He said goodbye like it was the only word he knew. Said he would be back, like lion didn't make his pants burn and his nose grow. He turned into Pinocchio before he'd admit that every time he kissed me, his only intention was to make sure that he sucked every last bit of himself out of me and took it with him. So all I had left to munch on was my own sorrow and the memories that he shattered into billions of pieces. All that's left of me is all that's left of him, and I can't help but hope that maybe someday soon he'll come back and realize that dreaming with me was always better than reality. Part of me wishes I could go back to that pitch black beach with him and stay in that moment forever. But all of me knows that dreams always seem to fade away, just like he did.
That is so so amazing. I love it because it took me somewhere, and like, wow, I love that. It's like I'm in your mind and I'm like walking around, like looking at the moment, and you guys don't know I'm there. But then it also takes me to a similar like moment that I've had on the beach at night. It's so beautiful. Wow. Was this, you sure this wasn't it? It sounds familiar to me.
No, this is not anything that I've ever shared before. It's
Okay.
probably sounding familiar because I literally write about love and heartbreak all the time.
Yeah, I
So
think that's why. That's probably why. And it's also because you usually like you use a lot of imagery. So I guess like that's probably why I felt like it sounded really familiar. But I love that. One of my favorite things about your book, which I actually want to talk about now, the Nighttime series, which I absolutely love. It's so amazing. It's full of short stories and poems. So one thing I love about your book is that there's so much imagery and like everything I can just imagine and I can like just see it happening, which is why it's so easy for me to connect with it and like just feel like someone knows these feelings. Someone can express that and so can I, and it's like we can relate on it. And that's really how we help each other feel like or know that we're not alone. And I can sense like your intentions with writing this book. Like it was a huge way for you to express yourself and kind of like allow yourself to be out in the world, but also like to reach other people and let them know like it's important to express your feelings. Like you're not wrong for it, especially living in a society in a generation where like expressing your feeling is not popular, it's not common. But it's important, and like just looking around at a lot of people that I know or like a lot of people that I've grown up around, there's that lacking of expressing how they feel. So it's like a lot of internalized issues. And I think that this is so important for mental health as well. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And I want you to actually share a little bit about your book.
I think that the book is exactly what you just described, or at least that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to help people like realize that these feelings are there and it's okay that they're there. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason for people to be ashamed of the fact that they have anxiety or that they just get really sad sometimes or whatever the case may be, whatever it is, it's okay. You know what I mean? And for so long, I never felt like it was okay, like what I was feeling. Like I only just learned how to deal with my anxiety. And before that, it's just like I felt crazy. Like I felt like all these overwhelming emotions made me feel like I was literally psycho. And people would look at me and I'm like, I'm crying for no reason, but like there's really deep down the reason I just didn't know yet. You know what I mean? So like that's when I wrote the book. Well, it was over a course of time that I wrote the book. So like whenever the date is actually when I wrote the piece. And when I first started the document, I named it the Nighttime Series because I thought I was so clever, and I never actually thought like I was gonna do something with it. And my plan was just like, okay, write every night for a year and see. Like I just wanted to document my journey over the year, like how I grew or whatever the case may be. But then I started college and I had no time, and it went from like January to May, and I literally wrote nothing during that time. And I was like, oh my god, I totally failed. But that's why I still decided to publish it, because regardless of how often I wrote, a year passed. So there was still growth. There was still some change in me over that year. Maybe it's not documented in specific days every single day of my life, but it's documented, I think, over however many nights I have, which is 50. So yeah, 50 is not close to 365, but I tried my best. And I think that's like just my experience trying to write it is a big teller of like what the book is meant to be. It's like it's unexpected is what it was. Like I planned to do one thing and then it totally didn't happen, and it's okay that it didn't happen. Like it still works. The book is still great. And honestly, I think if I had reached 365 days, and I always think about it, I really feel like this book would have been the size of a Harry Potter book. And nobody would have wanted to read it. So like I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did. But like I said, I just think the experience I had and the process I had speaks a lot to what the book is actually representing for me, at least.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like I love it. And I'm glad that I know, like I like I said, I could sense your intentions with it, but like hearing you actually like say, this is why, or this is what I wanted. It's like a better feeling because it's like that means I felt it as it should be. You know what I mean? Like I caught it of my perspective of it, but also what it for what it is. And I think that, you know, as artists, we don't always see things for what someone else will see them for. But like if you really relate to it, like it's easier to actually feel it for what it is. And that's why I love this book so much, and like why I connect with it so much. Like experiencing anxiety and things like depression and stuff like that, and not knowing how to talk about it or how to express it, or even not knowing what it is for the beginning and like for so long, and thinking that that's just how you are, or just thinking that one day something's magically gonna change, you just have to wait for it. And it just it became you know, you can express this and it could change your life, for me, you know. And I think that that's what you kind of express as well, especially with my favorite piece at the end, which I do want to talk about as well. And it's so hard to narrow down like all of these. But when I read the very last one, A Tough Day, I was just like, wow, this is perfect. Like, this is one of those pieces that really aligned with how I feel now and like what I've learned now. And like the heartbreak pieces and like the anxiety pieces and like acting off of impulse because you feel hurt and not knowing how to express that. Like I've experienced it so much, and like it made me feel so bad about, you know, who I am, and like feeling like I'm crazy, like you said. And it just really came down to like I just didn't know how to express myself, and I didn't know what the feelings were just overwhelming. And like now I've learned so much from these things that it's just like that's all that was, you know. That was a way for me to learn and grow and like learn about myself. And I think that like when we're younger, we don't really do things with intention. Like we don't know what that is. We don't know what intention is. We just go with the flow of life. And like that's why so many overwhelming emotions come. But I mean the great thing about that is that we can learn from them. Yeah, that's really much that. Like there's so many things we could talk about. And there's like if we could have sat down and talked about every single thing in this book, I would have, to be very um but yeah, so I know that it is probably like a little hard for you to choose like one piece that you want to share with everybody. But being that your book is called the Nighttime Series, I came up with a little exercise for us to do called the Nighttime Favorites. And I actually want you and I to share like, you know, one of our favorite pieces in the book, and just read it, or like read your favorite part. So I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna start with A Tough Day, which is the very final one, night 50. And I love it so much. And I love that it's at the end because it's like through all of this, I finally found something that helps me besides, you know, writing about it. Like also just looking for the beauty in the world because it's there, you know, we just don't see it sometimes. It's always there. And like I said, like being younger and like going through depression and stuff like that, and thinking that magically things are just gonna change for me one day, you know, there's magic all around, you know. Like if you're not in the mindset to see it, then you just won't see it. A tough day, and my favorite, like I'm gonna highlight this part at the end where you said, I woke up today in a world that was black and white, a world that screamed depression. So I picked up a paintbrush and used the globe as my canvas. I revealed to myself its most brilliant parts and its most intense colors, and reminded myself that depression doesn't need to know colors. Depression doesn't need to find the sunshine within the torrential downpours. Only I do. And I absolutely love this. Like it's so amazing because it's like it just it symbolizes strength to me, and like how much we do love ourselves and we're willing to take ourselves to things like flowers and like just the ocean for me, and like things that we love to see just so we can feel better. Like it just goes to show that we actually are better at self-care than we probably thought we were. And over the course of the past few years, or for me the past year or past few months, like I've learned how to like take care of myself better. So I absolutely love that because it's like when you're going through that mindset, you feel like there's nothing you can do, and you feel like nothing's gonna change how you feel. So it's easier to just stay at home. Like there's days where I feel that way, and I will get dressed with the intentions of going out, but I won't make it out the door. I'll end up sitting on my bed for like 30 minutes and eventually say, okay, I'm not gonna go, you know. And it's like a trapped feeling, and I love that you were able to do that. And that's something that I've been practicing more, because it's like if I'm feeling this way, I can treat it in a way, and I could turn it around.
Yeah, and I'll just add that like I think it's so important that anybody who deals with like any type of like mental health problem, or even if it's not like anxiety and depression, even if it's just like you just get super sad sometimes, or like, you know, anything, it's just important to note that like self-care sometimes means just letting yourself be sad, letting yourself feel whatever you're feeling. Like there are days when I get so sad that like I'll just stay in my bed all day under my blanket, and the next day I'll be fine. Like that helps in that moment. Like I think it's so important that it's all about like figuring out what you need in any specific moment, and not, it's like not a universal thing. It's not like this is the cure all for it, you know what I mean? It's always going to be something different, and you just have to be able to work with that. And I think that's why it's so hard for people to take care of themselves in a good way. Even myself, like I don't want to say people, like if I'm calling someone out, no, like it's me too. It's like I can never just give myself a break and let myself either feel it or help myself in the best way that I can. I have to understand that I am going through something, and it's okay to be going through something. Like we're all going through something all the time. And I just think that that's so important. And I also wanted to say this image, last page of the book, I have to give a huge shout out to my illustrator because I can draw for my life. But the illustrator is actually like one of my sister's friends from high school. Her name is Rosenia Ruiz. And I pretty much like gave her the pieces, and I was like, just do whatever your mind, like whatever comes to mind. You know what I mean? Like I gave her some ideas here and there, but for the most part, like I just told her, you know, like you're more of a visual artist than I am. So if you can figure something out, I'm open to it. And I just thought that that final illustration was so great. Like, oh, it makes my heart so happy, honestly. It's definitely one of my favorites in the book. But I guess I'll share mine.
I also love the whole black and white thing. Like it's perfect. I love it so much. Like I love how nothing's colored in. It's all like
Mm-hmm.
drawn out, and I love that. And I also agree with like nothing's universal. Like everybody, it's really about finding out what works for you. That's really what life is. And you know, we can take advice from other people, we can listen to other people, but until we truly know what works for us or what helps us feel great, or like what helps us get through things, we will, like, that's all we can really do for ourselves is what works for us.
So this is from night 17. Hold on, let me see. Make sure that's right. Yeah, it's titled What I Imagine It Would Be Like. So I'll read like the last three little paragraphs. So it says, maybe you'll never get rid of that pink scrunchie. Maybe it will remind you of simpler times when your biggest problem was getting to the coffee table with those two legs under you that you didn't know how to work. Maybe it will remind you of the easier marathons, and that will bring you comfort. All of us, we have our pink scrunchies. Maybe mine's a ring and your parents' is a tattoo. But really, we are our own pink scrunchies. We lean on each other for support. We spend every day getting each other one step closer to the coffee table, one step closer to the finish line. Losing you is our marathon. This story is our collective pink scrunchie. So like that is just like an excerpt from one of the longer stories, honestly. But it's like so near and dear to my heart. It like most of it will make more sense if people actually read the whole entire thing. But it's in reference to my cousin who actually passed away. But like I wrote it right after she passed, and like it was just such a it like it was like the glue that brought my family together during that time, you know, because she was just a baby. And so like I just was thinking like what would her life have been like, and it's part of it is funny because it's like little things that our family does that's like we know that it would have happened. Like for example, I'll use the example I gave in the story. So my grandmother does Avon, okay, but my grandmother doesn't have a computer and she doesn't really know how to work the computer that well. So she'll always call my mom and like tell her, oh, can you do the Avon order for me? But she's always joking around and saying like, oh, she's gonna teach me and my sister to do it so that she can call us and have us do it. So I just found it funny. Like that's definitely something that my cousin would have experienced in her life, you know? And it's just little things like that. So just I feel the story kind of like lightens the situation for my family. Like granted, like grief is a dark road, you know what I mean? And it doesn't really ever end. But I really believe that this story, and I say it's a pink scrunchie because I think that also ties into my anxiety a lot, honestly, because in like all of high school, I would always wear like a scrunchie that I would like a hair tie around my wrist and like play with it in my hands. And I still do it now whenever, or I'm like using a pen and just like fidgeting. And like it was always when I was nervous, like, okay, I'm just gonna like play with this. And that's what I just pictured for my cousin. Like I just pictured like that would get her through things in her life, you know? And for my family, the story, like I said, is our scrunchie. Like it gets us through the tougher times when it's like the grief is hitting us that much harder. So yeah, that was like one of my favorite pieces.
The pink scrunchie, like I really love that. It's like a form of identity in a way that helps you just feel like you're meant to fill your space in the world, and you don't need to feel guilty for it because you're here for that reason. And whenever you feel this way, you feel that way, this is always here for you, you know? So I think that's amazing. Like whenever there's no one physically around you, this is here for you. And it could even be something that's just in your mind, something that you saw that you just won't forget about, or like just warmth from a friend that makes you feel good whenever they're not around, or even like literally a pink scrunchie, you know? Like it's so beautiful. And I love the symbolism. You see in the end where you have you finding the flowers for yourself. I want to actually like leave a message for anyone who struggles with finding flowers for themselves, if you get what I mean. And like people who, like I said, I have days where I struggle with even getting out the door. So people who struggle sometimes with doing whatever makes them feel better on days like that.
When you said like how people like find flowers in themselves or for themselves, I just immediately thought to like this moment I had recently right before I left New York, and actually like I wrote about it and I did like a voice memo on it, but I didn't actually write it down. Anyways, I'm getting off track. So basically, I was like down at the seaport with my family, and like it was like, well, by the time we left it was like darker, and like there was the buildings were all like lit up and the bridges were like lit up. It was just so pretty. Oh my gosh. And on top of that, there was like this guy playing an instrument. Like there were just like lights and everything was like so magical, you know what I mean? And like I just wanted a minute to take it in. So like I just stepped aside from my family and I just stood there and I just looked around and I listened and I just like relaxed into the moment, you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to get at is like you have to separate yourself from individual moments. Like you'll get so overwhelmed if you just like stand in the middle of a crowd and like just not taking moments for yourself. You have to be able to step aside literally and figuratively and just be like, okay, let me take a moment to breathe. Let me take a moment to admire the sunset. Let me take a moment to look at that bird over there. Like literally whatever it is, it just take a moment for yourself. Take a moment to just take a breath. And that's also why I added the checkpoint in my book, because even in little things like reading, like you just go through like the whole entire book in one setting, it's like you have to take a break. That's the biggest thing I could say about it, is just take a break for yourself. Set yourself a moment aside to just take a breath in is the main thing.
Yeah, I love the checkpoint. It's so like it just the way you did it, it just screamed you matter, you know? But I want to say to anyone who's struggling with finding flowers, or like um struggling with getting themselves out the door when they're in a mindset of, nothing's gonna work, nothing's gonna change how I feel. Um like I like to call it numbness, is what I call it sometimes. I think that one thing that I could say, I could of course say, it's worth it, try to get out the door, go take yourself to do something like you love to do, or write or paint or read. And it's so easy to say that, but it's like, it's one of those things that's easier said than done. So what I would rather say is, I know it's hard and I know that it feels like you're trapped and your mind convinces you so many things sometimes, but you just have to remember that it's not always going to be that way. And there will be a day where where you realize and you learn things that can actually keep you feeling great and have you feeling good. And whatever you're going through now, and like the feeling of like exhaustion and like being emotionally drained and uninspired, and you just want to be in bed all day, you're not eating, you're not showering, just pay attention to how you feel and like maybe actually write about it or just express it in some way, and maybe that'll relieve you, or maybe just anything that makes you happy. But I can't tell you what to do because I don't know what makes you happy. But for me, fresh air helps a lot, and it kind of just like shifts the weight and like resets me. Also, one thing that I do that helps me a lot is I do voice recordings to myself. Like when I'm feeling great, I'll do a voice recording of like great things that I love about myself or like things that I love or like positive affirmations. And then when I don't feel good, I'll meditate with it and listen to it. And it's like instead of listening to someone else, like someone else's voice, I'm listening to my own, and it reminds me that I can get back to that place. And I've been there before, and it's not gone. It's there, and I'm still there for myself. It's just harder. So I think that's something that maybe could help you, but it's just all about remembering that you are still here, and just because your mind may not be here, you're still here, and it's never a permanent thing.
Okay, I actually love that whole like record yourself when you're in it. Like that is so like brilliant, honestly. So snaps for that for sure. That's really smart because especially because like I just started doing yoga recently and sometimes I do like shavasana, I think that's how you say it, where like, you just sit there and like meditate and they talk to you. But like I can't just sit there and listen to them tell me like take a deep breath or like whatever. Like and I think that's actually so smart. Like this idea of like meditating to the sound of your own voice, remembering that you can get back to that place. And honestly, not to like get on too much of a sad-ish note, but just thinking about the post, the suicide awareness post, I think that that is actually so important. Like the fact that I think that a lot of people who do commit suicide just don't ever believe that there's going to be a brighter side. They never think that things are going to get better. And that's why I always say like I'm always open to chat because I've been to like the rock bottom where I just felt like nothing would ever be better. And like it always gets better. Like maybe it takes longer than usual sometimes, but things always turn around. And like I think that's so important for people to remember.
Yeah, it's hard to remember, like you said, but it's so important too. Things happen on your time, and you are like the creator of your own life. You know, like you are able to paint things. So now I do want to do a writing exercise with you. It's called Look What You've Done, dot, dot, dot. It's easy to judge ourselves for being human and feeling human things because it's not like a good feeling. We judge ourselves. Instead of like taking the time to pinpoint the negative things about ourselves, we're going to take the time to pinpoint the positive things about ourselves that we've developed with. So, for example, like you could be like, Brianna, look what you've done. You've created something that X, Y, and Z, you know? Look what you've done, Daryl. Look what you've done. You have created something so beautiful. You have created something that brings wonderful artists together and allows you all to express yourselves without being judged. Look what you've done. You have thrown yellows, pinks, purples, and oranges across a blank wall and allowed yourself to take up space. Look what you have done, Daryl. Look what you've done.
That's for that. You seriously have so much to be proud of, honestly. Like I love saying this to you because you deserve to hear it. You're doing such great work, and whenever you're feeling down, just remember like you have so much to be proud of. You're doing so well.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, like a lot. And like, especially now, like I've actually been having a hard time with that. So like, it just makes me happy. So it just helps a lot with like me trying to get myself there and like having that support. So I really do appreciate you so much for that. And same to you, like you're doing amazing. And I find that sometimes you feel like it's never enough, but you're doing wonderful, and like you have touched my life with this book, and like I'm sure other people. And I think that just one person is enough, you know?
Yes, I appreciate that, and I agree that one person is enough. Honestly, like it's so nice to just know that you're reaching at least one person. Like it's just like you can connect with somebody, and that's really important. Look what you've done. You made it to junior year of college, something that seemed impossible when you were pulling semi all-nighters in freshman year just to keep up. You learned to deal with your anxiety. Deep breaths and yoga are now your best friends during your worst weeks, and those still come often. You've learned to love yourself, looked in the mirror and said screw you to the society that tells you you have to be skinny to be pretty. You eat cookies shamelessly now, and you can't remember why you ever stopped. You semi let go of the overworker in your brain that locked you in your room until you finished a month's work of work. You're okay with working for the now. You learn to remain present in the sections of your life beyond work.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. And it reminds me of the part of your book where you talked about society's expectations of you and like of women. And I really loved reading that one. I also love the one about America, and it really see you like this is what I'm talking about. Like you really like at the time I was feeling so many things about America, like with everything going on and like Black Lives Matter and all that. And it was just so much frustration that I felt. It's just so important for us to tell ourselves like this is you're doing great. And it's sometimes hard to feel that way because it's like always like what's next, you know?
Yes, and I want to say thank you to you actually for having me do that because, like you said, it's so important to just remind yourself that you're doing okay. Like you don't have to be doing so like many crazy things at once to be successful. Like since I got back to school, I think it was like last Friday, I've barely been writing, and I felt like, oh my god, like I'm literally such a bad writer. Like I'm not doing anything, but I'm like, no, like I just need time to readjust to this new kind of climate and make time for it. So this is very helpful for me to remind myself, like, I'm still pretty cool.
Like I said, I do like record voice memos for myself sometimes and like I meditate with it. So like just hearing myself talk, it helps, and like hearing other people talk, it helps. Especially when like you're in a quiet room and like you're just drowning in your thoughts. It just helps you like feel like you're in control. So I want to do an exercise with you, and each of us have a role in this together. The title of the exercise is "If I have not written the nighttime series, dot dot dot," and then mine is if I did not read the nighttime series, dot dot dot. You know, so just to like talk about how effective it is and like what like it's provided like positively.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So first thing I'll say is I think like what I was talking about in the beginning, like it's provided for me an outlet to get my work somewhere where it's like I don't have to go somewhere and read it to a bunch of people and like because that would scare me. But obviously this is still scary, like getting it out to people and having it be in their hands. It was scary, but it also is so rewarding, and it is kind of a relief to know that like people are reading it and people are liking it, you know what I mean? And so that was like what it is, what it has provided to me, like first and foremost, is just like an outlet to get my words out there. And I think the next thing I would say is it has provided to me like a presentation of my growth over however long it took me not only to write it, but also to like actually put it together and print it and all that. And even up until this very moment where it's like, I don't know, what is it, September, almost 2 months since I published it, like just the growth from when I started to now, it's just insane, like I guess what I'll point out is like when it first came out or even right before it came out, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, nobody's gonna buy this book. Everybody's gonna hate it. Like I was so, so, so nervous. And most of all, I was so caught up in numbers. And I hate that about myself. Like I'm such a numbers person, but like now, like since then, I've learned like, okay, it's not all about how many people buy it. It's like how many people like connect with it and how the people that actually like love it and for what it is. And like that was most important to me. So that's really what it has taught me. I've grown as a person that like it's like okay, it has to be like high in ratings. So like okay, like the people who are reading it, like I hope that they love it, and the fact that they love it is what gives me joy. You know what I mean? And I think beyond that, I guess not what it's provided to me, but like what I hope it's provided to other people is like um just like a connection, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm so redundant when I say this because I say it so much. It's like I want people to know that I'm here for them, like it's that I want them to feel like they can relate to me, I can relate to them, and they're not alone. Because there were so many times when I was dealing with my own anxiety and stuff that I'm like, am I the only weirdo that's feeling like this? Like, what's wrong with me, kind of thing. And I never really found people who were like me until I entered the writing community, which was literally like in May. So 2 years before that, I'm just here like, oh my God, like, how do I deal with this? Like, who is there for me? And I don't want people to feel like that. I want them to know that I'm here for them. And like, I'll literally talk to anyone about anything. I don't care. And it'll be like nerve wracking at first because I'm not a talker, but like I want to help people in any way that I can, even if that means for me overcoming my fear of actually having a conversation. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would say that's kind of what it brought to me.
That's I definitely agree with like the whole wanting people to know that they're not alone. And that's really my point of this project. Like just helping everybody know that they're not alone, even myself, you know? Um but yeah, so for me, and I do want to say that like you've definitely like your book has provided that for me in a sense, like what you sought out to provide. So congrats. um if I had not read the Nighttime series, I don't think I would have actually been able to put some of the things that I've experienced within the past few years like into words so I could really understand it. I don't think that I don't think we'd be able to have this really healing conversation right now. And I also don't think that I would have felt so like a lot less crazy about experiencing human things and like especially within like relationships and feeling like, you know, you could be wrong in a certain situation or you don't just sometimes you just don't know and sometimes things can be very overwhelming. You don't know how to like place things into perspective and that's what this book has helped me with a lot. And like just knowing that certain things that I feel like the whole thing about America and like the whole thing about society and like the whole thing about losing someone and like overwhelming feelings in a relationship and not knowing how to deal with it or express it and like self-harming, whether it could be like a mental thing or a physical thing, but for me more so mentally, you know. And I think especially like the one I talked about with you, Tough Day, and like how I am capable of turning things around for myself. And it just helped a lot with like perspective and like putting everything into perspective and just feeling like it's normal. It's normal. It's okay. It's normal. And sometimes we don't have people around us to do that, because a lot of the people, some people that I know, they're not as like in tune with their feelings and like they don't really turn inward as much. So they can't tell me that it's normal because they tell themselves that it's not, you know? But yeah, so that's what your book has provided for me. That's what I feel like I would not have had if I did not read the Nighttime series.
I really appreciate that. The book made you feel like what you were feeling was normal. And I hate I hate that we live in a society that's like it always is trying to set other norms. You know what I mean? Like that's why I talk about the body image thing. It's like, why does somebody have to be skinny to be pretty? I hate that. Okay. And that's not, and also clarify, that's not to say that people who are skinny aren't pretty. You know what I mean? Like it works in all ways, all body types. You know what I mean? And like the whole thing about the Black Lives Matter and when all that stuff, well, it's kind of still going on, but when like it first started with the protests and the riots, I remember just like sitting in a living room with my family and watching the news and like it was terrifying. Like not only that, my dad works for the fire department. So during those times he would encounter like the riots and like the scary stuff. And it was scary because it was like, oh my God, like is he gonna be okay? Like are people gonna kind of like go crazy on him? And it was just so scary. And that's where that piece in the book actually comes from. It's like I remember just sitting there and being like amazed that this is what we're going through. And even beyond that, like through the whole like COVID thing, like I've talked about it in some of my classes now. It's like I was born in 2000. So I mean, I was like one when 9/11 happened. So I obviously don't remember it, but like my parents lived through it and I hear about it through them and learn about it through them and textbooks, etc. And I feel like it's so crazy to me that like this is what we're going through now, like with the Black Lives Matter and COVID and like all this crazy stuff. Like we're living history, which is kind of scary to say. Like people are gonna learn about this later. You know what I mean? So like I guess what I'm trying to say is like there's so many things going on that for society to try to tell us like one thing is normal is absolutely ridiculous, which is why like I just think it's so important for everybody to know like everything is normal. Like literally anything you can think of is normal. Like there's no set rules to what is and isn't normal. I hate that society puts that on us.
I agree 100%. And I'm just now learning, like getting to a place where I'm learning, like, Daryl, whatever you love to do, whatever you like, that makes you feel great, if it's not hurting anybody and it's like, it's authentic, what's the problem? You know, like there's so many moments where I'm like worried about what other people may think because of society's norms. And the truth is that it's not real. Like what's not normal are the norm. Like the normal, like the word normal is not normal, you know? And like I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in the word normal at all. I really, really don't.
Yeah, and like to add on to that, you know what gets me so mad? Oh my gosh, I'm like getting mad right now. Okay, so when I was younger, I used to love Taylor Swift. Okay, when I tell you I love this girl, like, oh my god, I was obsessed with all of her music. To this day, I still know all of her songs by heart. Like, oh, whatever. The point is, I stopped listening to her music because the people around me that were supposed to be like these like cool kids in like middle school and high school were always like making fun of me for it. You know, like, oh, why you listen to country music? You know what I mean? And it's like it's not until recently, like literally, a lot of people that I follow on my writing account write poems based off of Taylor Swift songs. I was so in my head and worried about, oh, society is thinking X Y Z. I shouldn't be listening to this music, that I started listening to some like music that I would never listen to. Like even now, like some of like the rap music that everybody listens to, I'm like, okay, like, I can deal with it. But other than like, I really would just like to listen to my slow jams and really country music and all this stuff. Like I want to do what I love, and I think I hold some resentment towards myself, my younger self, for letting people decide what I was going to listen to and what I was going to love. And I'm so happy that I now realize, like, I don't care if society says don't listen to Taylor Swift. I'm going to listen to her now because now everybody loves her and I'm the only one that's like left out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's just the story.
That's something that I relate to so much. I don't know if you saw today, but today I posted on my Instagram that on my writing page that I love Little Mix and I've always like loved girl bands and like girl groups. So like that was always my thing. And I remember when I first like started to love Little Mix's music, like I wouldn't really like talk about it, and like, I would feel like ashamed about it like a few years ago. But now it's like no. But more like the point I was trying to make is like when I was younger, I was like drowned in the Cheetah Girls, drowned in like Hannah Montana stuff, and I was tucked down on it, like you know, by other kids in school, but also like the older men in my family, which I always like talk about now because like it's so important for me to express that, and like so I try to tell like the younger boys in my family that it's okay to like love what they love, and like there's nothing for girls, there's nothing for boys, whatever you like to do, you just do it, because I know that they don't have that around them, so like I feel like it's my responsibility, being that I do think that way, and like I experienced the same thing and it affected me. And like just now I'm able to like come full circle with myself and like just be honest with myself and allow myself to love the things that I've always loved. And I noticed that like throughout my high school experience, I was like hiding that stuff from myself and I didn't like actually do what I really loved, and I tried to like fit in with other people, and it just only caused me to shut down. So like for those years I was not happy. And I think that's what really led to like my depression and me, like the self-image that I had. And like now it's almost like a rebirth, and I love it. You know, like I'm very grateful for it, and I'm also grateful for the experience because it's like now it's even more important for me to encourage other people to be who they are. And you know, I know someone who said that like you know, she said that she doesn't have the right to encourage other people to be themselves or do what they love, but I think that especially for the younger people, it's important because whatever the adults say or the examples they set, it affects them. And I think we're all examples of that. And we're realizing it, and either we're continuing it or we're trying to change the cycle. You know, you and I are trying to change the cycle. And so it's important to me. Like, I'm glad that you said that because that's something that I'm learning now about myself, and like letting myself like be honest about and like just do the things that I love to do and just try to do it more out loud, because then I can relate to more people, you know?
Yes, I 110% agree. I feel like us realizing it now and trying to act on it is the most important thing, like to make the change. Because it's like, honestly, I'm so sad that I missed out on so many years of not listening to music that I actually like to listen to, you know? And even now, there are times where it's like, okay, I won't listen to it in front of like certain people because it's like, okay, let me not like show that side of me. But even still, like, there's, I'm making progress, you know? And maybe it's not full like change, but it's enough baby steps, you know what I mean? So I think that's super important, especially you saying that you're like putting that onto the younger people, the younger boys in your family. That's really important because like I think that it is our job to help younger people and even other people our age to realize like you can do whatever you want. You know what I mean? You can like whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, just do it. Like honestly, life is too short. That's like so cliche, but it's so true. Life is way too short to just not do and be the person that you want to be. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. And I want to be that for myself, but also to lead an example, because I can't tell them to be themselves and I'm not doing it, because like there's
Hmm.
no way to teach someone what you're not doing. You can tell someone something, but if they don't have an example to show for it, they don't know how to do it. They're gonna have to learn in hard ways. And I think that's what happened with me, and that's what happened with a lot of the people that I know. We don't know how to do the things that we want to do, but we're like finding our ways. Like we're stumbling, we're getting there. And we're learning, and I think that's beautiful. And I think that's how a lot of the most successful people and the most successful artists got where they got from just saying, fuck it, I'm just gonna put myself out there. If I look crazy, I look crazy, and then eventually, I'll be where I want to be, where I aim to be, and other people will feel that. Like I used to use social media and look for like a type of validation and like try to fit an image, and then eventually it took for me to learn about myself and learn what I really want. And like now you can see the difference. And like I decided to create a writing page which is called Written with Love recently. And it's just such a great experience, especially starting and having that support.
So I had actually made my writing page like I think about a year ago. Like it was the same time I made this one, but like last year. And I honestly deleted it because it was before I think my first year of college, so maybe it was 2 years ago. And I was so overwhelmed and I was like, I can't do this. And I just felt so much like I think the community was much different then, honestly. I don't think I found the same people that I find now. So I felt so much pressure like all the time to like post and all this stuff. And I was like, I can't, like I don't have time and I never had time. Okay. So I deleted it. And then I was like, when I was making this one again in May, I was like, oh my God, wait, like maybe I shouldn't because the people who followed it before are going to be like, wait, didn't you already have a page and like judge me? You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, I went back and forth, back and forth. And like all my big life decisions, I asked my mom because I ask my mom everything. Like even now, I'm in Florida, my mom's in New York. If I can't decide what to eat, I'm like, Mom, should I get nuggets or a chicken sandwich? And she'll tell me, and I'll do it. You know what I mean? But anyways, like I ended up doing it, and I'm so happy that I found this community because, like I said, the community I had before completely different, and this one is just so welcoming. And sometimes it does, like I speak about this sometimes on my stories. Like sometimes it does feel like people only support writers that they know. And like when you're trying to be new coming into the community, it's like scary because it's like, what if people don't want to see my work? What if they don't try to look for it? And sometimes it's not like deliberate. Like people aren't deliberately saying, oh, like I'm going to ignore her post. It's like the algorithm, of course, is always messed up. People are always talking about that. Instagram just sucks in that way. But like, I just think like the community I found on this writing page is so much better. Like I've grown a lot. Like I started in May. It's now September. So maybe I'm not good at math. 3 months, right? I think 4 months. I don't know. The point is, it's just like I've grown so much, not only like in myself, but my writing has been like 10 times better because it's like you get to see what other people write. And I love like using prompts from other people or like doing after poems of other people. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a nice community to be a part of and to know that like these people are kind of like pushing you to be better and do better. And honestly, it's kept me writing more because like I said before, I like whenever I get busy, I just don't write. I'm like writing is one of my favorite things to do. It's like one of my biggest outlets and I'll just push it to the side. And that is what like sparks anxiety for me. So I'm like, now I know like this is what helps you. So this is not an option. Like this is not something that you can cut out. Like you have to do this. So I try like being a part of the community has taught me to write. Like that's it. Just take time for yourself to sit there and write. And I love that I meet so many different people, honestly, because like honestly, I think it's like you and maybe like two or three other people that are New Yorkers. Beyond that, I know a lot of other people now that I never would have met, and people from like the UK that like I would never get in contact with these people, but they're so awesome and they write so well and they're so supportive. And I love everything about the community, even though it is frustrating at times. It's just so nice to be a part of something like with the things that I love that I know the people that I'm sharing with love as well.
By the way, I love the UK. Like, I'm gonna move there one day. I am going to move to the UK one day. But yeah, I think that I'm very grateful for you based on what you said about like people not sharing like unknown writers or like small pages. You know, I appreciate you taking the time to support mine and you know just take the time to like see my stuff, and I just love to communicate with people authentically and like really enjoy their work. And you said like you've had your comp like 3 to 4 months, which is like wow, because your stuff is like I thought you were doing it for at least a year to be honest. But that just goes to show that there's no time frame on things. Everybody has their own time, and it's really about just doing what you love to do, to be very honest. And that's why I really enjoy it, because for like so long I wanted to start a writing page, but I was I wanted to do it for the wrong reasons. You know, I wanted to do it for the recognition. Like when I was younger, like I would say a year ago, or 2 years ago. And like I remember back then, I would like post my writing on my story on like my main account, and then it's just gone within 24 hours. Like that's it. Or like I would post it and then delete it if I felt like it didn't get enough recognition. But the truth is, it just doesn't matter. And that's what I've learned. It doesn't matter. It's really about you doing what you love to do. Like, I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, when I was younger, if I, like, when I was a kid and I would, like, create, like, fan things or, like, do, like, little Wattpad stories, like, I didn't care about who saw it. I was doing it because it was fun. You know, even if my page was private, I was doing it because I wanted to see it. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I do want to reach people and I do want to impact people and I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel even challenged to like sometimes counter certain things that like just know that everybody has their own way of viewing things. Um, but also to feel like they're not alone in that. But at the same time, I have to feel that way from my own work first. And like no one will believe in what I don't believe in yet. And that's what I really had to learn. But yeah, it's so beautiful to learn things because I struggled with putting myself out there, and now it's not hard as it used to be for me.
Like I just think this whole conversation has just brought me to this realization. I don't know if I'm gonna word it correctly when I say it out loud, but it makes sense in my mind, right? Okay. So you were just talking about how like when you were younger you would like write on like Wattpad or whatever and like you wouldn't care about like what people thought about it, you know? And I feel like I feel like just now personally for you and I like we are coming back to that kind of younger mindset if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is like as a kid like we didn't care. We were like, okay, we're gonna do what we want, and we're not gonna worry about what anybody else thinks. And then in the middle, like somewhere between then and now, we're just like brainwashed by the society that's like, do what we want you to do, kind of thing. And then it takes coming back to yourself now to know, like, okay, it's okay for me to do what I want to do and be who I want to be. And it's so crazy. Like obviously there's so many differences between what both of us went through, but like it's the same kind of general timeline kind of thing. It's like as a kid, we're like, okay, like careless. And then in the middle, it's like something happens and we're part of this society that's like, that changes us. And now we're trying to take that back. You know what I mean? I just thought that was so nice, you know?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Like my friend Melanie, um, she actually recorded with me for this as well, this project. And she said that like when we're younger, we're like, we already know what we want to do. Like, you know, when you grow up, you're like, all right, so let me stop doing this. That's for kids. Or you'll think like, remember when I used to do these little songs and like do scenarios, so childish, haha. But the thing is, that's what you wanted to do. You already know what you want to do when you're a kid, and when you're in the apartment and your cousins are around you and you guys are doing this and doing that, doing dance contests, doing this, and like just creating your own things within a space. where you have to use your imagination to really enjoy life. How come it's so easy now for us to be in certain settings and feel like those settings are taking over us and like affecting our mood, which is very normal. And I'm pretty sure as kids we felt that way as well sometimes, but it was so much easier for us to go into like a place full of like things that like or people that we that aren't necessarily healthy to be around, but it's like we have that imagination and we can like just shield ourselves. And like you said when you were explaining that, I just thought about like a circle, like we're coming back full circle. And that's, I guess, the journey of being an artist, and it's so beautiful. I guess that's like phase one to really starting your journey, or like maybe we've already been on them. It's so beautiful to have questions. I've been realizing that. Like it's like I don't know, and I would get frustrated about not knowing things, but I feel like that's the beauty of life now because it's like I have so much to learn, and I feel like life would just be so boring and dull if I didn't. But like based off of what you just said, I kind of want to show you something that I painted a little while ago. This summer, I've had like a few magical moments that I will never forget. And honestly, I think this was the one of the best summers I've ever had in my life, and like just so like artistic and spiritual. And so recently, my friend Cassandra and I, we went to the beach together, and like we like set up a little picnic area next to like a cave, and like we have wine and like paint supplies and flowers, and we started to paint. And like I was like, now that I'm buying like paint supplies and stuff, I'm gonna just let myself do whatever. Like I'm just gonna make whatever, wherever my mind goes. And I just started to like paint this really dull background and then these colorful lines over it. And basically it symbolizes like all of us artists and like us creators just like overshadowing a very dim world, or like the world that we grew up in, or like the people who were surrounded us as kids who like saw things in a dull light. And like now we're like taking that and like just painting it. It ties into what you said in A Tough Day.
That was literally the perfect painting for this conversation. That was perfect.
I just thought about it when you were saying that. I was like, I have to pull this out. Like, there's no way. One of my favorite things that you say in your book, which I absolutely love, and like when I read it, it hit me so hard. And I included it in my review for your book on my Instagram, and which it is a house built against itself cannot stand. And the reason why I love that so much is because I've dealt with so many like internal conflicts, and it made it so much harder for me to, I guess, be and like actually take care of myself and love myself. And that just goes so, it just, to me, it felt like something that I needed to know. And I needed to hear and understand that I cannot live in a healthy way if I'm not treating myself right. You know what I mean? And I also thought about like my household and just so many other things, so many other aspects. But to me, the most important thing was like me, like my relationship with myself.
So just to clarify, like I didn't create that like line. That was like I don't know history, but I'm pretty sure Abe Lincoln said it. But don't quote me on that. It was definitely a very famous person. But yeah, I can. That's why I italicized it because it's not something that I said, but it's something that I have come to learn over the course of my life. It's like they always say like you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself kind of thing. It's the same kind of idea. Like you have to be whole within yourself before you can expect yourself to do anything great or be anything successful. You know what I mean? And I guess that's why I really wanted to include it, not only because it kind of fits the piece that it's in, it's just that like it's so important for people to understand that like you have to fix yourself first. Not even I don't like using the word fix because there's nothing wrong with people, but you have to mend yourself. You have to take care of yourself first before you try and do anything else.
So now there's one final thing that I want to share with you, which is something that I wrote for you. And I think that it's something that I just wanted to do. Like reading your book, I felt like in my review, I think it was on, no, it was on Amazon. I said that I felt like it was like a gift wrapped thing to like that I got for myself or sent to me. Brianna. You have decided to put a name to your feelings, heavy emotions, truths, and make them all mean something. You have taken your worries and written them all into solutions. You have taken your heart and splattered it into pages. You have wrapped a blanket around me with a bunch of colors on it, reminding me that I am not alone.
You don't like know how happy these things make me. Like I really appreciate you and like what you wrote and just your love for my book so much. Like when I first read your review on Instagram, I literally cried and I brought my phone to my mom and I was like, oh my god, look. And like we were both crying and it was like it means so much to me that you feel such a deep connection to this book because that's really all I ever wanted for it. And like we said earlier, like reaching one person and for you and for me that one person is you, like that's enough for me to feel like I did something with it, you know. Thank you for having me on A Little for the World. I love this whole thing. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for being here. It means so much to me. And I feel really great doing this. It's also like a very healing thing for me. So it just really like turns the day around a lot of the time and it just makes me feel great. And we all deserve to connect more. Like artists, we really deserve to connect. And I'm very grateful for you and your work. And I hope that we can do something like this again soon, maybe.
Yes,
Um,
hopefully.
so enjoy the rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.
What a surprise! You have opened my eyes. I see love, powers in you. Such a beautiful view of the world. Healing is real. You recreate what you feel.